here, and now I think we're just about good. So everybody should be able to see the slides now, and if anybody can't see them, let me know in the questions box. It's over on the right-hand side of your screen, and you should be able to type in there. And so if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in there so you don't forget them along the way. And then we'll go back and look at those after, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. So my name is Matt Handy, like Mona said. I'm the website and social media coordinator here at CCSN. And today, of course, I'm going to be talking to you about social media for nonprofits. So my main goal for this presentation is for everyone to come out of here today with a bit of a deeper understanding of how you can better use your social media accounts if you have them already, or how to get them going if you don't. So over the past 3 years, I've been doing social media here at CCSN, and I think I've learned, quite a bit about what works and what doesn't work well when it comes to social media. So I hope that you guys can all come out of this presentation today at least a little more knowledgeable than you were before. And I also want to make you all aware of some really useful tools that help me out on a day-to-day basis that I don't think everybody knows about. And these can all really streamline your experience on the web and make using social media even easier. So let's get into just an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First off, we're going to define what goals you want to achieve and how to best go about achieving those goals, as well as taking a look at some resources you might have available to you. And I think even if you already have social media accounts and you already kind of have them going, I think it's always good to kind of revisit that topic and just make sure that you're kind of on track. After that, we'll get into what I think is the most important social network for this type of stuff, which is Twitter, and we'll go over some strategies to use there. After that, we'll get into Facebook and talk about some strategies for that. And then after that, we'll talk about a few other social media outlets, some mobile apps, some general strategies, and actually before all that, we're going to talk about analytics as well, which I think it's a really important part of social media to kind of gauge your success. Then we'll discuss a few useful tools that I use every day, like I said before. Then we'll do a final overview about what works and what doesn't, pretty much any social network across the board. And then we'll conclude with an overview of my main points. And like I said before, the Q&A session for anyone who has any questions to ask. Now, so what we want to start off with here is, where do you stand? So it's a very important question because everybody's kind of at a different point. So you want to take a note of this. And make sure you kind of know where you're starting off from, what your goals are, what resources are available to you, and who are you trying to reach with your message. So I noticed that many of you said you were around the intermediate level, some of you are beginners in the little questionnaire when you filled out the webinar registration. That's great. I think these next few slides may not be new information to everyone, but like I said before, I think it's important to revisit these things often, and you should be constantly updating your goals and as you continue to run your social media accounts. So what are your goals? So the first thing you want to do before you do anything online is ask yourself, why am I doing it? What do I hope to gain from it? So for example, are you generating awareness for a specific cause or event, or maybe you're trying to just reach as many people as possible to spread a certain message, or maybe you're trying to contact politicians or decision makers or something like that. So you always want to kind of get an idea of who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to tell them. So I believe that setting out a plan like this is really important because it will be easier to figure out how to achieve your social media goals once you know exactly what you hope to gain from them. So next, what tools are at your disposal? After defining your goals, you want to have a good idea of what tools or resources you have to make your online experience the best it can possibly be. So first of all, do you have somebody that will do it full-time or part-time, or you spread out the duties among existing employees and volunteers? Both have their advantages, but it's up to you to decide what's better for your organization. Having one person dedicated to social media can be helpful, but it's not always a full-time job. So a good way to do it would be to have a social media person that also takes care of other things kind of in that realm for your organization as well. So things like websites, sending out newsletters, that kind of thing that generally involves a similar skill set. Next, do you have any kind of budget that you have to put towards it? Of course, things like there's like analytics managers, social media managers, software that can help out a lot, but some of them cost money. Now, in my experience, there's lots of free options for social media management out there, but it really depends on how in-depth you want to go, whether or not you decide to use the paid stuff. In my opinion, you don't need to be spending money on that kind of thing to still do a good job. Next is, do you have any original content that you're going to be posting, or will you mostly be using outside material? Either one is fine, but an ideal situation, if you ask me, is to have a healthy mix of both. Now, if you already have an existing social media presence, that's great. That means you already have a jumping off point and you can use that to launch whatever you're doing. This can mean you have, already have a personal Twitter account. You could let all of your followers know there that you have this account for your organization or something to that effect. And then finally, if you're just starting to get involved in this type of stuff, attending workshops and webinars, just like this one, will definitely help you get a good idea of where you're at and what you need to be successful. So now we'll get into how to engage your audience, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this as the presentation goes on. But after defining your goals and the resources you have to then decide what kind of content you think will be appropriate to achieve your goals and reach your target audience. So I'll discuss engagement quite a bit this afternoon. Essentially what it is people doing anything other than looking at your posts. So like a reply, a retweet, a link click, anything of that nature is considered engagement because it requires a person to actually click something on your post and hence engage with it. So again, it's this question in terms of content of original versus recycled content, and specifically what type of content you're going to use. If you want to inform people about a certain cause, you'll obviously want to post news or events related to it, as well as multimedia like videos or pictures are always a good thing. But a healthy mix of different types of content, as well as a mix between original and outside content, is your best bet to keep interested in what you have to say. You want to also make sure to always try to include a graphic, a link, hashtags in your posts, those kind of things, as those three things are proven to have higher engagement rates than posts that don't contain them. And I'll speak a little more in depth about those coming up in a few minutes. And as shown in the graphic on this slide, having a tweet with an image is absolutely imperative to increasing your engagement rate. So you can see the drop off with the difference between tweets without images and with images is very significant. So it's always good to try and have some kind of image in your posts. And it's not just relevant for Twitter, it's relevant for any network. So now we'll get into analytics, and I wanted to talk about this to kind of start off because I think it's kind of relevant to all the stuff that we're going to talk about later, and it's a good jumping off point. So before we get into talking about the actual social networks themselves, I want to spend a bit of time discussing analytics on this slide. Analytics can help you understand what you're doing right and potentially also what you might be able to improve on or change. Now, most networks have their own built-in analytics, namely Twitter and Facebook. Both have their own analytics. They're very robust. They're free to use. And in my opinion, they offer you a really, really good starting point to judge your progress. Now, I'm not planning on going into detail with each one, as that could be, honestly, an entire webinar on its own. But the two metrics you need to understand to really kind of get an idea of where you're at are impressions and engagement. So first, impressions are calculated by the number of people that see your post. So that could be, it could be anyone. It could be your followers. It could be anyone else who happens upon it, through a retweet or a hashtag or anything like that. So impressions aren't just your followers that see the tweet. It's anybody. It could be anybody that sees the tweet. And then the next metric is called engagement, which I've already just touched on a little bit, which is calculated by the amount of users who interact with your tweet in some way other than just looking at it. So it could be, like I said, a retweet, share on Facebook, or a like, a reply, a link click, any of that, any of those things are considered engagement. And that's the number that you really want to pay special attention to, because it shows kind of how many people are actually doing more with your content than just browsing by it. So what I'll talk about for now is the example of Twitter. You want to look at engagement as a signifier of your success. Engagement, as shown on the slide here, can be calculated. There's a few different ways to calculate it. Some people do it differently, came across in my research. But with Twitter analytics, it calculates it as clicks plus likes plus retweets plus replies plus followers gained divided by the total impressions on the tweet. So you can see in this this graphic here that there's impressions, engagements, and engagement rate. and you can look at those kind of three numbers to get a better idea of how many people are actually engaging with your content and that. So now, like I say in the slide here, a good engagement rate is a little nebulous. There's a bunch of different targets that people think you should be going for, but I found the general overall consensus is that a good engagement rate is about 0.5% to 1% of people engaging with your tweets. So my suggestion here would be spend some time in your analytics, look around, see what content does well. You can, especially in Twitter analytics, you can sort things by your top tweets in the past month or in the past week. So go into there, look at those, and see what's working for me, what's doing well, and then try and emulate that as much as possible for your further tweets or posts later on. You can do the same thing in Facebook. But I think it's a good idea to just aim to increase the numbers, not to hit a certain target, because everybody's targets are going to be different depending on what you're trying to do. So there's no real one-size-fits-all strategy here. It's all very kind of personalized to your organization. So just go look at your numbers and then try and make them better is basically what you want to do here. So now, after we talked about that, we'll now get into important social networks. Of course, being Twitter and Facebook are the biggest two. So we'll start with Twitter, and we're going to talk about what a good tweet has here. And of course, we have hashtags. It's one of the reasons why Twitter is so great for spreading a word about a cause. They can help you maximize your reach by being able to find others who are involved with your cause already. You can also create your own hashtag, which I've seen, you see many people do it during events and stuff, which is a really good way to kind of keep everything centralized. So you can tell your followers to use it when they tweet about your cause or your event or your organization or whatever. So, and then, like I said earlier, graphics are really, really important on social media. Just think about it. A post with a graphic is much more likely to catch your eye than a post with only text in it. So if you have any experience with Photoshop, this is where it could come in handy. If not, there are some other free graphic design tools available to you that I'm going to discuss a little later on that can be really, really useful. So I made a simple graphic for today's webinar. It doesn't have to be flashy, just to get the message across. If you're tweeting about a news article, go grab a relevant photo and include that with your tweet. I'll show you some stats on the next page that will exemplify why you'll want to be spending that little bit of extra time creating graphics and putting photos and stuff in your tweets. Next up, the same goes for putting links in your tweets. People are much more likely to engage with your content if you give them, some kind of link to click or some kind of action. Retweet this, click this link, find out more here, etc. That kind of thing. Next, finally, I say moderation here because it's really the name of the game when it comes to social media in terms of posting habits. You don't want people to forget about you, but you don't want to annoy them either. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a second. So as you can see on the screen here, there's my anatomy of a tweet that I've called it here that shows what a good tweet is made of. It tells people who, so we have our logo on there. What, it's the webinar, the free webinar today. Where, which shows, it's us again. The when, was obviously I'll put the date and time on here. And then the how, which is of course included in the link. And then the why is also found in the link as well when you go there. So you always want to include the link because it gives people more information as to whatever you're posting about. Now we'll get into overall posting habits on Twitter, and they can really make or break you, I think. So overall, your most important goal when posting on Twitter should be to prioritize timely news and events. People on Twitter, they want to know what's happening right now. There's obviously specific cases or times when it makes sense to tweet about something in the past. Perhaps you hosted an event and you want to share some stories or pictures from that, or you want to remind people of something with it in case you missed it, or ICYMI, which you see people use a lot of the time if you want to remind your followers of something. But you should always try and prioritize tweets that are in the now, so to speak. The general rule that we follow here at CCSN is no more than 1 tweet per hour, and that is on the higher side of things. A lot of you will probably be looking at 3 to 5 tweets a day, which is a fairly good range still as well. I mean, of course, it kind of varies from organization to organization, but somewhere between 3 to 5 to, and then a higher end to 8 to 10 tweets are still pretty good. You'll just see kind of your engagement fall off after about 5 tweets or so, or 4 or 5 tweets, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that on the next slide. The key here, and I'll say this again and again, is staying consistent. Quality is better than quantity in a lot of cases. And then, so as you can see on the graphic on this slide, another thing to consider is the time of day you want to be posting. Now, this is only for Twitter, this graphic, but in my experience, it's also the case for Facebook, and as well as email newsletters and that kind of thing. You want to be posting things around lunchtime, local time. So, and remember, if you have followers around the country or around the world, that can make things a little more complicated. So make sure you post, if you've got region-specific things, that you're posting them kind of in that lunchtime time frame for wherever the local time is around those between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. local time. Again, consistency is the single most important thing when it comes to social media, in my opinion. So now, what not to do on Twitter, and I think this is a very, very important slide. First off, I'll say again, inconsistency is your enemy. The whole idea of social media is to get people to associate your organization with whatever content you're posting. So if people don't remember you because you haven't posted in 2 weeks, then what's the point of spending your time posting at all? If you're gonna only be able to tweet once or twice a day and not post to other networks like Facebook or whatever else, it's much better than going dark for days and weeks at a time. If possible, it's important to tweet all 7 days of the week. So if you have a social media management program, and I'll talk about some of them later, that can schedule tweets, I highly suggest you schedule some tweets for the weekend. And if you don't currently use them, like I said, I'll discuss some of the best ones later on. Now, on the other hand, on the other side of that, you want to limit spamming people's timelines on Twitter. And what I mean is basically rapid fire tweeting things one after the other, because it's generally fairly annoying for users because they want to go on Twitter to see stuff from everyone that they follow, not just you, right? So the only time it's really appropriate is if you're live tweeting something, but even then you shouldn't be posting things, every 30 seconds or something like that. Like leave a bit of time between each tweet if you're posting, updates from an event or something like that. Now, as you can see from the graphic here, like I was saying on the last slide, tweet engagement actually starts to decrease after your 3rd tweet in a day. And then it starts to level off when you hit the 8 to 10 tweet mark. So anywhere between those is a pretty good rate to tweet during a day. Now, while I did say that hashtags were good earlier, just make sure that you don't use too many in one tweet. In my opinion, 2 is enough and 3 is acceptable, but pushing it a little bit, I'd stick to 1 to 2 hashtags per tweet if possible, because they start to annoy people if you get too many of them in there. Now, if your organization doesn't have a lot of original content, you're going to have to probably repost things about your organization or whatnot to keep your Twitter feed active, and that's okay. But I'd recommend only reposting a certain thing maybe twice a week, depending on the nature of it. If it's something really timely, you might, like, this webinar today, I posted about it, I think 2 times over the past 5 days, and I wouldn't go a whole lot more than that just because people are going to start to get annoyed with seeing the same thing over and over and over again. But it's always good to remind people of stuff. Maybe once. Next up, not having a call to action in your tweet is basically defeats the purpose of tweeting. If you're only posting about cancer, but then one day, oh, actually, yeah, I messed up right there. At the very least, have a link that people can visit from your tweet, call to action, anything like that. Like I said earlier, you have to tell people what to do, and a lot of the time they will. If the content is interesting to them. The easiest way to get people engaged is to ask them what they think, so ask them to comment or reply about their opinion on something, or to ask them to retweet the post too. A lot of people will do that if you ask them to. Now, finally, you want to make sure whatever type of content you're posting is consistent. So you don't want this mixed or muddled messaging. If you're only posting about cancer, then one day randomly post about cupcakes for no reason, your followers are going to get confused. Now, if the cupcake post is about a bake sale to benefit cancer research, that would be different, as it is at least related to your normal content. But what I'm saying is don't just post, I really like cupcakes, from an account that has no reason to say it. And on that note, I should say that it's really unprofessional to use an organization's account to tweet any kind of personal stuff, so make sure that never happens. Now, overall with Twitter, moderation and consistency are the most important things that you want to keep in mind. You want to be aware that quality is almost always more important than quantity, but you need to stay consistent in order to keep people aware of your organization or cause. So it's always about finding that middle ground between the two. Now we'll get into Facebook, the next most important network in my opinion. And Facebook currently has over, I think, 1.5 billion users, or it's about 1/7 of the world's population. So that means your reach here has immense potential if you advertise it properly. The next point is both a blessing and a curse. You can pay Facebook to promote your content. And if you don't do this, not all the people that have liked your page are going to see everything you post. However, if you have the money to pay to promote your content, there are a ton of people are exposed to it, not just the people who like your page. A great thing about Facebook too is that you don't need to have a fully separate account for your organization. You can link your organization's page to your own personal account and then give moderator access to anybody else in your organization by adding them to the organization's account as a manager. So it makes it really, really easy to share posting duties across many people. And then Facebook is also great because your organization gets streamlined along with person's, friends and family, and it ends up being more personal and more in depth, and it doesn't have a character limit like Twitter, so it allows for longer posts and story posts and that kind of thing that can really get people engaged. Now, something that I wanted to mention here about Facebook are some things to try and avoid because, again, spamming on Facebook is going to get you nowhere. It's just going to annoy people who see your content. Not all your posts even go to every person that has liked your page. From my experience, it seems as though the more content you post, the fewer people each post actually goes to. So I'm not sure if this is actually the truth. It's been a hot topic of debate over the last little while, but it definitely seems like it from what I've seen. So according to an industry average put together by Social Bakers here in this graphic, the average amount of posts per day from really large brands is one post. And it translates to the nonprofit sector as well because of Facebook, you want to post enough so that people remember you, but not so much that you're annoying them. So it's a lot different than Twitter in that you don't want to post multiple times per day over and over and over because people aren't going to be looking at all of those posts. So you really want to focus on one, maybe two things per day, depending on what's happening. Now, Facebook honestly should be more of a secondary option to Twitter.
Lost pictures. Yeah, okay. It's back now.
Okay, looks like we're having a bit of might be having a bit of connection issues. I know there's storms going around outside, so I don't know if that's affecting it. But hopefully everybody can still see me and everything. I'll continue now. Hopefully everybody can hear me and all that. But as with Twitter, inconsistency is going to be detrimental to growing your audience on Facebook, just like I was saying before, along with not making an effort to post original content or just repeating the same things over and over and over again. Now, finally, something that makes a lot of sense for Facebook, but pretty much any social network, is proper formatting. So according to Nonprofit Tech for Good, which is an organization that I'm going to talk about a little later on, tweets that are written in complete sentences without abbreviation and therefore easy to read are retweeted much more often, and also tweets or posts that end in a period or colon before the link are retweeted more often and thus have higher click-through rates. A messy, overloaded post just isn't worth posting. So you want to take the time to format all your posts properly. And though she was talking about Twitter and that, it's obviously very relevant for Facebook as well. So make sure you always format posts correctly, double check for spelling and grammar, because the internet grammar trolls will get you if you don't make sure that your posts are spell checked and all that. Another thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is taking advantage of new trends. Just yesterday, Facebook rolled out a new like button, which I'm sure many of you noticed, which allows users to not just like a post, but now they can love, haha, wow, sad, or angry. So it's more of a reaction button now than a like button. So what does that mean? Well, I think most importantly, it'll change how we look at some analytics on Facebook. Now rather than tracking engagement just through likes or shares, we can track them through a different range of emotions. So it also opens up the question of, are all reactions equal, or is a love better than a like? It's hard to tell at this point, but it's definitely going to make things on Facebook a little more interesting. Now, mobile apps. I want to talk about these just for a few minutes here on this slide. They're next up on my list of social networks that you should use, and they're by no means necessary, but if you're the type of organization that has lots of events, they can be really, really useful. So they can be great for engaging followers as well as creating buzz around your events and whatever your cause may be. Instagram and Vine are both excellent mobile apps to use to keep your followers across your networks updated on what your organization is up to. Both of them allow you to post your videos both to Facebook and Twitter. So if you use your same username on Instagram and Vine as you do on Twitter, people can easily find you across all those networks. And then we have newcomers, Snapchat and Periscope, which are both really great for documenting events in real time and broadcasting them to your audience. They're definitely more niche apps than others that I've discussed so far, so I'd only recommend them if, one, you have the resources to use them, two, you have events, live events that people online would be interested in, and three, you have an audience that would maybe already use those apps. So if you have, a bit of a younger crowd, they'd definitely be interested in some of those things. Now we'll get into a couple other useful networks that I think are definitely good to think about using. First of all, many of you probably have your own personal LinkedIn accounts, but you can also have organization accounts. So it's like a professional version of Facebook, basically. But the professional environment LinkedIn provides is really excellent for fostering contact between like-minded individuals and organizations, and it can be a catalyst in connecting with organizations and individuals who might be doing similar things to you. And another convenient feature of LinkedIn is that it allows a personal profile to essentially act as a resume. So it's possible to find possible candidates for jobs or volunteer opportunities if your organization is looking for anything like that. It's a really massive network. It's got 259 million active users, which is a little less than half the size of Twitter, and it's pretty large considering it's specifically for professional purposes. So it's definitely something that you want to think about using for your organization as well, not just your personal account as well. And then on a bit of a different end here, we got Pinterest, which is certainly more geared towards fluff style posts and things like that. So there's definitely a place for organizations on Pinterest, and there are different ways to leverage it to get your message out. It's a really great place for infographics, as the format for Pinterest is really, really good for large graphics and photos. So if your organization has infographics or anything like that, it can be really good to put those up on Pinterest. And another quick thing to note about it is that you should post your images to your site and then link those images on Pinterest, as Pinterest sends users to the source of the image when they click on them. So you could actually get more click-throughs to your website by just posting them to your website first and then linking it on Pinterest from there. So the thing I want to talk about here is my 3 C's of social media, and these are kind of the general idea that I want people to take away today. And I figured I'd get into it now before we keep going, just to kind of get this in your head and thinking about it. So first of all, consistency. Like I said, you want people to remember you, pick you out of a crowd, and one of the best ways to do that is posting consistently. You want a healthy balance between quality and quantity, and finding the middle ground between those is your best chance to stand out. Second is conscientiousness, and what I mean by this is you want to understand your followers and the people who are choosing to follow your cause or organization. So regularly interacting with people and acknowledging or posting their content sometimes as well is a really, really good way to foster healthy relationships with other individuals or organizations as well. And those relationships can also help you further your own cause by encouraging those people to post your content and repaying you for posting theirs in a way. And then the third one is currency. And not the money kind. Especially with Twitter, you want, but with any social network, people are looking for the most current and relevant information. You want to make sure the content you post is the most current and most relevant information you can possibly find, especially if you're posting about news or events. So unless it's something really, really interesting or something you're positive not many people have seen, it's better to leave older content in favor of posting newer content. So now we'll get into some of the tools that I use every day, and I think this is going to be the most, I hope it's going to be the most useful part of the presentation for everybody, because it may be some things that you're not aware of, maybe some things you're already aware of, and that's fine too. So starting off here, I use push for screenshots. It basically just lets you click and drag a certain part of your screen and then automatically opens that picture in your internet browser with a link you can paste anywhere or download it. It's a lot more intuitive than using the default screenshot features on Windows or Mac, so I definitely recommend this program. It has tons of great uses. And then moving on, I'm sure many of you have heard of Dropbox, but I want to emphasize that we use it every day here at CCSN. You know, it's really useful if you have multiple people working on the same project, as you can share folders between everyone and give access to anyone. And Dropbox also gives you a ton of storage by default. So, and then you can pay for a business account if you need a ton of storage. And then it also works well as a file backup system, so you can access all your files from both home and work. With that being said, be sure to back up to an external hard drive regularly, as Dropbox is not foolproof and it's certainly not immune to certain viruses. And then in the same vein as both Evernote or as Dropbox, we have both Evernote and Google Drive, and are both good apps to create, edit, and share documents between multiple people. I actually use Google Drive and Evernote extensively while creating this presentation, and there are tons of great uses for both. And the one nice thing about Google Drive specifically is that people can edit files simultaneously without worrying about overlapping different versions of files. So that's one thing about Google Drive that's really nice. Now moving on here, Bitly, probably one that people have heard about before too. It's a great way to make your links look nice and standardized, and also keep track of them, because it also allows you to customize your links to make them recognizable to your audience. So that's a good use for it, and it has stat tracking too, which is really nice. So it keeps track of click-throughs on all your links, and you can see which links are doing the best, and you know, you can look at that content and post more of it. And then next up here, I use Dashlane every day. It's one of many options for password management, and I'm mentioning it here because I'm familiar with it, and it's made my life a lot easier. It stores every password you have on every website, encrypts them all. It's especially useful if you have lots of social media accounts and have a difficult time keeping track of them all. And it also has corresponding mobile apps that sync automatically every time you update a password or add a new one. Now, there's many different password managers out there that I'm sure many of you have heard of in the past, but if you don't use one right now, test a few out, see what one works for you. But it's imperative, in my opinion, that you have one, and it'll make your life online so much easier. And then finally here we have Buffer and Hootsuite, which are both worth looking into if you run more than 1 or 2 accounts and are posting regularly on all of them. They can both help you with optimizing your posting habits and streamlining your online experience too. Now, I want to talk about Canva, because this is one of the tools that has made my life online so much easier, and I think if you haven't heard of it, you definitely need to check it out. It's essentially a social media graphics suite, which lets you create really professional looking graphics in honestly in minutes. It's much simpler to use for social media graphics than something like Photoshop, where you kind of need that skill, because Photoshop, it takes a long time to learn, and if you don't know it, it can be really daunting. So you have less customization options, of course, with Canva, but it's a lot simpler to use than Photoshop is. So it runs right in your browser. There's no need to download any software or anything like that. It comes with pre-sized templates for all types of social media posts. You can see a few of these in the screenshot I posted on the slide here, but there's a ton more to it than just those. It also, once you're creating a graphic, it has graphics templates to organize everything, as well as different graphical icons, photos, text styles, backgrounds, all that kind of thing to make everything come together really nicely. And honestly, the limit with this is really your imagination. There's a lot you can do with it, and the best part is that it's free to use too. If you currently run social media accounts, definitely check out Canva and play around with it a little bit. It has made my life a lot easier, and it's allowed me to create some really nice looking graphics for CCSN events and of course webinars like you saw earlier on the Twitter slide. Now we'll get into Tweetdecky. And Tweetdecky is another really useful tool that if you run multiple Twitter accounts, it's definitely something you want to look into. It streamlines all your accounts and improves on everything that is wrong with the default Twitter web app. First, there's support for different Twitter accounts, so you'll never have to switch between separate browsers or constantly get signed out or signed in with the wrong account. It remembers all the accounts that you have, and when you type a tweet, you can decide which account or accounts that you want to tweet from. Next, customized timelines are another great feature TweetDeck offers, so you can have any type of content from any users all in one timeline and just and have it really customized to what you want. It also has real-time updating, so you never have to worry about clicking refresh on the Twitter page again. And every time there's a new tweet from somebody you follow or a new one from a Twitter list that you have, it automatically updates with that. A very small user interface, a very useful interface feature of TweetDeck is its night mode option, which I really like. If you're a night mode lover like me, TweetDeck has that for you. Another great feature is its filters. So TweetDeck allows you to actually type in a phrase you choose or a word or whatever, and it'll automatically filter out any tweets with that phrase or set of phrases in it. Then in the default Twitter web app, lists really aren't that accessible. They're kind of hidden away. But in TweetDeck, you can have a column right there along with your timeline and all that with your lists or multiple lists in it, which makes them really easy to access and simple to keep track of. And then one of my personal favorite parts about TweetDeck, and lots of social media managers have this ability, is the ability to schedule tweets. And you can choose the day and time of your tweet, and it'll remember it for you, which is just, it makes everything so much easier. And the most important part about TweetDeck is that it's all, of course, for free. It's a great program, and if you use Twitter every day, you should definitely consider it. Moving on, Google Alerts are something that probably people know about, but may not be using. They're really a great way that Google can work for you, especially if you like to research and post news and events to your accounts. They basically scour the web for any kind of content that you ask for, and they deliver you an email with the most popular and relevant content that they can find. And you can have that daily or weekly. And we use tons of these every single day here to find interesting news and events to post on our social media or our website. And they can be tailored to be as specific as general as you want. You can have them country specific. And then you can also tell Google what kind of content you like or don't like, and it'll update to find the content that you want the most. So it's a really huge time saver rather than scouring the web for things. It does it all for you and sends it right to your email. So it's really, really nice. So a few things to remember that I want to make really, really clear here. I want to go over the most important things to remember when you're thinking about posting to your social media accounts. First off, having clear and concise messaging is absolutely essential. The easier it is for people to understand what you're trying to accomplish, the more likely they are to engage with you. So try to make sure all of your posts answer as much of the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, where, when, why, and how as possible. Obviously, it isn't always realistic, especially within Twitter's 140 character limit. But if you can't put everything in a tweet, put the rest of it in a link. And that gives people more information. Also, well-made, relevant images or graphics will go a really long way in distinguishing your content from everyone else's. So it's always better to post less but have a higher quality of post than simply putting out as much content as you can day after day. Again, reiterate that you need to be consistent. It's really, really, really important. Then, of course, having links or a call to action are really important because it makes it really easy for your followers to get involved in what you're doing. The easier you make it for people to get involved, the more people will do so. And then finally, something that I haven't really touched on yet, but something I wanted to mention is story-based messaging. Anytime you can, bringing personal stories into your messaging can really help people, relate to it and want to get involved. So if you're doing, some kind of fundraiser, for example, profiling a person that might benefit from the money raised, highlight their story with your communications plan for the fundraiser event. It's a really good way to get more people involved on social media, is giving them that personal touch. And now some things that you should not be doing. Spamming is probably my #1 biggest pet peeve on social media. You always want to go with quality over quantity. There's no point in posting 50 tweets if no one wants to read them. So make sure your content is unique, even if it means taking the extra time to include images, make a graphic, find a link, or make one that's relevant. It's always worth it to take more time to craft a better post than simply going for a huge volume. And then, on the other hand, inconsistency will hurt you more than you know. Before you start a social media campaign, make sure you have the time, money if you need it, motivation, all of that to ensure you have a consistent presence online. Because if you're not consistent, people are not going to engage with you at all. Simply, if you don't give people something to do with your post, they won't. They'll scroll by your post, they'll forget about it once they find something they can get involved with. Like I said earlier, make it easy for people to get involved, and they will. Ask them what they think, pose a question, ask them why they feel a certain way, post links, surveys, anything that people can get involved with. The more people that get involved through your content, the more they'll associate your organization with being an important part of their online experience, and they'll keep coming back. Now, another thing that I haven't touched on yet is how to deal with hate or trolls, that kind of thing. The best way to deal with these types of accounts is to not give them what they want and not respond, is basically what you want to do. You want to block them, you want to report them, all that kind of thing within the reporting system. All social networks have them. So use them if you need to. The worst thing you can do is respond publicly to them, as you'll look fairly unprofessional and you'll be giving that person exactly what they want to, which is not a good idea. And then finally, when I say text only here, it doesn't work because it's boring for your followers. People want links, they want images, they want something to do, they want something to look at when they're online. Give them that stuff and they'll be much more likely to interact with you. And I think that this quote here, I think that those words are words to live by for anybody working in social media. If it doesn't take effort, it probably isn't worth posting. So meaning if you don't have to put a lot of effort into the content you're posting, chances are people aren't going to be really interested in it. Now, a few further reading or other useful resources that I wanted to mention here are on this slide here. While I was putting together the presentation, I used a number of sources that I'm going to mention here. First, I want to talk about Nonprofit Tech for Good. They're a really, really good resource for all kinds of helpful tips and tricks for not only running social media accounts, but setting them up, planning, tracking your progress, all that kind of stuff. It was actually at a Nonprofit Tech for Good webinar that I learned about Canva, and that alone has changed how I use social media. So definitely check them out. There's lots of good stuff on their website. And then in that same vein, Buffer and Hootsuite also both run blogs that have really useful information about running social media accounts, how to track your progress, all that kind of stuff. I used some graphics from their posts in this presentation, so I'd highly recommend taking a look at those if you're interested in going deeper into your analytics and understanding kind of what everything means and how you can get more out of it. And then a couple of other useful resources for information about running social media accounts are Social Media Examiner and Dasheroo, which both I found lots of information on how to measure your success using analytics. So further reading is definitely on those sites as well. And then finally, I'm sure a lot of you are probably aware of TechSoup, but if not, you can get discounts on all kinds of software through them. It's a really, really helpful resource for nonprofits. They also host webinars about tech trends and stuff that are particularly useful in finding new resources, such as the next thing down here, which is Pexels, which I heard about on a TechSoup webinar, which is a really good stock photo website that has free high-quality photos that are much better than what you'd find in your average Google image search. So that's a really good place to start if you're looking for those. Now, overall, like I said before, 3 C's. You want to be consistent, conscientious, and current. Make sure you remember to post quality content regularly, interact with your followers, that's a big one, and ensure you're posting the most current and relevant information. You also want to make sure you're using every tool that's available to you. Do your research. Find new ways to make your life easier, whether it's something like Tweetdecky or Dropbox or Google Alerts, those kind of things. The more tools you use and learn how to use, the better and simpler your online experience is going to be, and the more time you'll have to actually create the kind of content that you want to put out. I should also mention that there's tons of other free resources out there. Google is your friend, and Nonprofit Tech for Good, like I said, they have tons of great resources that you should definitely check out. Also remember, moderation is key. You don't want to post too often, but you want to post often enough to ensure people remember you and your cause. So like I was saying earlier, there's a few posting habits that you want to keep in mind. You want to stay in that middle ground. And then finally, if it doesn't take effort to create a post, it probably isn't worth posting. So that's it for the presentation part. Now we're going to move into a little bit of Q&A, and I know there's a few questions that have come in here already, so we'll take a look at these, and I'll hopefully be able to answer as many of them as possible. Now, Nancy asked a question here, and she says, if your objective was to reach health decision makers, what would be some of the social media considerations you should make? Health decision makers, obviously really important in this in the nonprofit world. Lots of people trying to get involved with that. Now, there's a few ways you can do it. There's a lot of hashtags out there that can help you get involved, especially like with the political side of things. There are political hashtags for every region I know in Canada that you can use to your advantage. There's likely Twitter lists out there of I don't know them off the top of my head, but you can search for Twitter lists of people that are involved in health and that kind of thing. So those would be like using those hashtags, looking for Twitter lists are probably a really good jumping off point. So those are two really good things to do. In terms of other considerations, I'll come back to this. I'll keep thinking about it, but those are two things that I can think of off the top of my head. Mona asked, when you say 3 to 5 tweets a day on the same subject, it could be, I mean, overall, 3 to 5 tweets a day. So it could be any kind of content. I would say probably if you're tweeting about, an event or something, you could probably get away with 3 to 5 tweets a day about that event. If it's, currently going on, if you're like live tweeting it or something like that. That's probably a good idea, but if you're talking about the exact same, like say a news story or something like that, you probably only want to post it once because people are going to get annoyed with it if you keep posting about the same thing over and over, especially in one day. So it really depends. Like when you say the same subject, it could be a general subject, and you post 3 to 5 tweets a day about that. But if you're posting like very, very specific, news or information or events or whatever, you probably want to limit it to 1 or 2 a day, and then mix in some other content in the other tweets as well. Are there other popular? Tina's asking, are there other popular hours to message other than 11 and 1 p.m., i.e. after 6 p.m.? What I can do here, I want to go back to that slide, and there was a graphic that shows, where is it here? Just got to find it. What time of day. So here you can see the most popular times. And yeah, you can look around that 4 to 5 p.m. mark is a bit of a spike as well. But it really does drop off, after 6 p.m. when people go home from work. There's a lot less people online, but there's also a lot of people on early in the morning too, like 8 or 9, even 10 as well. So, those kind of the daytime hours are much more active, of course, which of course makes sense. But you always want to make sure that, or remember that if you do have people around the world that they're going to be up at different times. So, it's always, Twitter is always an active place, or social media are always active. It just depends on what part of the world you're in, of course. But yeah, the other two most popular times, according to this graphic anyway, would be 9 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, sorry. So those are other good times to post as well. Then we had some people talking about sound. I think everything's okay now. Emma has a question for the end, which it is now. So, do lots of other organizations pay for Facebook ads and boost posts? I haven't done this yet, but I've definitely seen engagements going down in the last year or so, and wonder whether it's a factor. It could be a factor. Definitely, I know Facebook does prioritize people who pay. Of course, I mean they're a business as well. They need to make money, so they prioritize content that people have paid to post. And I can tell you, it really does work. If you have the cash to use on it, it can boost your content and get it out to 5 to 10 times the amount of people that would normally see it, or even more than that. But overall, engagements could be going down on your end. If there's less people liking your page every week or so, you want to look at the metrics on that and see, if I used to get 20 or 30 likes a week, but now I'm only getting 5 or 10, well, of course, engagements are going to go down too, right? So you want to look at that as well. But I don't think it's really necessary to pay on Facebook to make things work. It's just a matter of posting at the right time and having the right posting habits to make sure that you maximize. So like I was saying, you only want to probably post on Facebook about 5 to 7 or so times a week. Depending on if you're posting on the weekends and everything too, then you can maybe get up to 10, but you want to stay between the 5 to 10 posts a week range. So if you're following those, it could help a little bit. Now, Leslie says, how do you set KPIs to measure success with social media? Now, I'm not familiar with that acronym, Leslie, so if you could spell it out for me. It might just be, I'm having a brain cramp or something, but I don't recognize that. So just let me know what you mean by that, and I'll try and answer that question as best as I can. Helen asks, if you're using Hootsuite, would TweetDeck be necessary? Definitely not. TweetDeck is something that I think is really, really good if you have, if you're just using it for Twitter. Of course, if you just have a bunch of Twitter accounts, it's really, really, like, it's Twitter specific, obviously, so there's a lot more Twitter specific tools that it gives you. So if you're really, really heavily invested in, multiple Twitter accounts, it could be used alongside Hootsuite, and then have, your Facebook and everything else on Hootsuite and kind of use them both in tandem. But it really depends on what social media accounts you have and what you're using. But I think it's a really, really great, a great resource. Leslie's asking if we can have a copy of this, and yes, I will mention that. We will upload this webinar both to YouTube. The full video on demand of this will be on YouTube tomorrow, and the slides will also be on our SlideShare account tomorrow. So you can look forward to those coming to you in an email. It should be tomorrow afternoon. Everyone who either is here right now or couldn't attend but did register, everyone will get access to both the YouTube video of this and the slides, as well as all the resources that I used in this presentation. You'll have access to all of that. So that'll be going out tomorrow afternoon. Amy, curious how many other nonprofits on the call use Snapchat. Yeah, I don't think it's very widely used. Off the top of my head, I don't even know who does use it. But I think probably an organization, just for example, like Young Adult Cancer Canada, could probably make a really, really good use of Snapchat, because they've got the right target audience for it. But it's definitely, like I said, it's a very niche network that and it's not something that everybody's going to get a lot of use out of. So you definitely want to kind of take a step back and look at, if I'm going to be using this, is it going to be worthwhile? Lisa's asking, what are the benefits of Hootsuite over TweetDeck? I think the main point of using Hootsuite instead of TweetDeck is if you want all of your networks kind of centralized in one app. So like the main difference is that TweetDeck is only for Twitter, right? So if you have other accounts too that you want to use alongside your Twitter accounts, then Hootsuite is probably the better option for you. But then if you're really, like I said, if you're really invested in Twitter, TweetDeck is great because it has a lot of customization options that you don't get specifically for Twitter through Hootsuite. So you want to keep that in mind. Maybe using both would be good, or using TweetDeck on its own can be really good as well if you're really focusing your efforts there. Key performance indicators, numbers of likes. Okay, that's what you're talking about, Leslie. What is good? How much should we set as a goal to grow percentage-wise? Now, that's what I mentioned a little bit about this when we were talking about analytics earlier, and you want to be in terms of what a good engagement rate is that's what you're looking at. Like that's kind of what the standard is for looking at success. And your engagement rate overall should usually be somewhere between 0.05 to 1%. And if you look at Twitter's analytics, for example, you can see how they calculate that, and it's through, like I said earlier, it's like likes and replies and all that divided by the amount of people who saw your tweet. So that's the best way to look at things. So those are the specific numbers that you probably want to kind of shoot for, and anything more than that you should definitely be happy about, because the standard is somewhere between 0.05 to 1%. So if you're doing higher than that, you're ahead of the game, basically, is what I'm saying. So Lauren is asking, what is your take on tweeting celebrities to support your cause? Is it Twitter etiquette? How can you go about tweeting celebrities without annoying the rest of your followers? That's actually a really good point. And it's definitely something that you want to think about before you just jump in and start spamming it to a bunch of different celebrities and stuff like that. You want to do your research, find out, have certain celebrities supported certain causes in the past, and you want to target those people specifically. So I'd say pick and choose. Don't just spam like 50, 100 people a day about supporting your cause, because obviously it could get annoying for people. But just keep in mind that if you're tweeting at celebrities, if you're tweeting directly to them, if you start your tweet off with the celebrity's handle or whatever, the only people who are going to see that tweet are the people who follow both you and that celebrity. So you could send a bunch of tweets to a bunch of different celebrities without annoying your overall follower base, unless you're aware that they follow a certain celebrity, like these certain celebrities, as well as you. But generally that overlap probably won't be enough to annoy a lot of people, and they'll probably think it's kind of cool that their favorite organization is reaching out to one of their favorite celebrities or something like that. So it can be a good way to show a celebrity that the people who are engaged with your organization are really interested in them getting involved too. So I'd say just make sure that you're not spamming people's timelines by tweeting without using the celebrity's handle first. If you're just putting their handle somewhere in the middle of the tweet or at the end, and everybody that follows you is seeing those are going to get really annoying. So I'd suggest tweeting it directly at the celebrity instead of making just a general tweet that your entire follower base can see. That's probably the best strategy to go about with that. Now I think we're through all the questions for now, and that's perfect timing because it's just about 2 o'clock. So let me just go back to the very end of the presentation here, because I had just another note in case anybody missed it. The webinar, of course, like I said, will be available to watch on our website tomorrow, and make sure you share it if somebody couldn't have made it today and they think it was useful. Definitely send it along and see if anybody else is interested. But that's going to be it for the webinar today. I'm going to send it over to Mona again to do a bit of an outro, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. It was I think it went really well. So yeah, we'll send it back over to Mona, and thanks everybody for listening.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Matt. That was a dynamite presentation. I think I'm going to have to watch it 3 times just to take it all in. There's tons of information and useful stuff. So thank you, Matt Handy, for offering your expertise to everyone on this subject. It'll be available, as you mentioned, tomorrow online. There'll be a full video on YouTube and slides which will be on our SlideShare account. You can see our opening page at www.survivornet.ca to lead you to those links. Don't forget, next week we're just publishing some upcoming webinars from the Save Your Skin Foundation. You can find the directions on their website. One of them is tomorrow at noon, Pharmacoeconomics of Cancer Drugs with Frederick Lavoie, and on March